That day was the moment that you hit your first 10K month. 1 month later, you hit your first 20K month.
And then another hour, it was like a few more thousand and a few more thousand and a few more thousand. My sales were in my control. And if you didn't get the sales, you got sacked. You don't need to be way out of your comfort zone, but you also don't need to be complacent. You want to go viral, but for all of the right reasons. I'd kind of blindsided myself in this process where I was trying to help so many different people. You know, they didn't trust the process. They probably didn't really trust me. Nobody wanted to do anything online anymore. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to actually have my notice in now. What am I actually gonna do? I need to think of something fast to be able to scale because I couldn't go and meet people one-to-one in person. I woke up of 2019 in a cold sweat thinking I have burned through this cash that I'd saved and I've got nothing left.
Don't Work Harder is the show for entrepreneurs who are ready to catapult their business forward, because we believe it's not about working longer, harder or smarter, it's about those braver moments. One bold move is worth 1,000 small steps. So rather than those small incremental movements that are moving you forward at a much slower pace, we're going to share with you the stories of successful entrepreneurs who've taken those big, bold steps to move them forward. This show is brought to you by Atomic, and I'm your host, Suman Randhawa, and I'm here not only to share with you the stories of entrepreneurs and the success that they've had, but you'll also walk away with the insights of what they did at that exact moment when they made that change that moved their business forward. Elizabeth, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on Don't Work Harder.
Thank you for having me.
So it's not that many years ago that you did your iconic IG Live on the last day of the month. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, there were confetti cannons going off.
Yeah.
And that day was the moment that you hit your first 10K month.
Yes.
1 month later, you hit your first 20K month.
Yeah.
Take me back. Where were we? What year were we in?
Yeah.
And why on earth were there confetti cannons going off?
So it was 2021.
Okay.
It was one of those things where lockdown went two ways for people. It went really, really well, or it went terribly. And luckily for me, I'm so grateful that it did go really well for me. People were really keen to learn. They wanted to join courses and things. So I had been selling courses almost from April 2020. I got straight onto it as soon as everything shut down. And I built up like a really good audience base. My Instagram had grown quite quickly. And I was doing my expenses on the last day of the month. And I realized I was I was 132 pounds away from precisely from hitting 10K. And I didn't realize until looking at the numbers. I knew it had gone well, but I didn't realize like how well it had gone. And so I went to buy a confetti cannon that day. I found a hammer in the garage.
A real hammer?
A real hammer.
Okay.
Like, where is this going? And then I hosted an Instagram live auction and tapped on live and decided I would give away an hour of coaching for £132, which I think at the time was about half price. And I just said, whoever's the first person to say like me in the comments, it's yours. And I smashed the hammer and then the confetti cannon went off, which was fun.
What a fun idea.
The most fun thing is what happened afterwards is the amount of people who then said that they hit a 10K month because they saw that it was possible. And I'd made such a hoo-ha about it and a big celebration that somebody else then, when they hit their first 10K, they then set off a confetti cannon. Somebody else said that they had had no work for like months and they were feeling really down, and then watched the video. And then that afternoon, she got 2 emails coming through for paid work in that afternoon. And I don't know, it just felt like a really magical moment.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, what an iconic day. Like, you must still remember that so clearly.
I know. And I even interviewed somebody recently and she said that she remembered it on my podcast. And I was like, this is so weird.
That it was a magical moment for so many people.
Apparently.
So it's so interesting, isn't it? Like, from a business point of view, what happened with the pandemic. So Elizabeth, how do you describe yourself and what you do? So in layman's terms, let's imagine I have the pleasure of sitting next to you at a dinner party. How would you tell me what you do?
I am a fashion brand consultant, which is a job title that I pretty much made up. I didn't know anybody else that was doing it when I started it. I think there was one company, like a small agency in Australia, and I thought, yeah, I can do that. And I help independent brands that are purpose-led with their manufacturing and marketing.
Amazing. And specifically fashion brands then. So independent fashion brands, you help them with their marketing and their manufacturing.
Yeah.
How did that come about as a business then? Because your background was as a buyer, and we're going to speak about something in a moment. You know what I'm going to bring up.
My viral TikTok.
Yeah, we're going to wait on that one. Before we talk about your viral TikTok and a certain person, how did you go from being a buyer to being a fashion consultant who had a hammer and a confetti cannon on an IG Live?
So there was a little a job in between where I was a buyer for Next, Miss Selfridge and Georgia ASDA across women's wear and kids wear. Then I actually got poached by one of my suppliers to work for them. And I did that for about 5 years. So rather than buying from suppliers, I was selling into the retailers. So kind of like that full 360 cycle of the buying, the product development. And I was an account manager for River Island, also Next, which was weird going back and seeing everyone there. And New Look, Warehouse, Urban Outfitters. So pretty much every high street retailer that you can imagine.
Like high-end premium to, obviously you said like supermarket.
Yes, shopping. Exactly. All very commercial retail is my background. So price negotiations, manufacturing, traveling around the world, doing little like fun shopping trips and things. And that company who was selling into the retailers set up their own company whereby we started a brand and got it featured in Topshop Oxford Circus.
Okay.
And as we were doing it, we realized how difficult it was to start a fashion brand from scratch, despite having Philip Green in our back pocket to put it into the windows of Oxford Street. Despite having 15 years background knowledge of working in the industry, we had all of the funding needed and it was still hard. And I thought, how many people out there are trying to start a fashion brand that don't have all of those things? What if you are an estate agent and you want to start a fashion brand? Like, where would you even begin?
Yeah.
And so I went on Google, looked in some different Facebook groups and said, hey, this is me. This is my background. If anyone's trying to start a fashion brand, let me know. I'm happy to help. Got this influx of messages.
Where are we? What year are we in?
That was in 2017, 2018. So I was still working.
So you had a job, but you just had this desire to help.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It was actually a bit woo-woo, if we're going to get woo-woo.
We like a bit of woo, yeah.
I was in a yoga class, so big into yoga. And I lay down at the end and I just had this feeling that I needed to leave, but I didn't know what I was going to do. It was just like a repeating message being like, it's time to leave now. But I was just like, can somebody tell me where I'm going? I don't understand.
Whose voice is this?
Yeah. And I was looking around the office. There was probably only about 30 people that worked there. I was one of the oldest people in there at the time. And the only person that I reported into was the guy that owned the company. So there was no career progression.
Right.
And I had just hit 30. Some people call it a Saturn return. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have, yeah.
So once Saturn returns, it's around 30 years that it comes back.
Yeah.
And you start thinking like, what am I actually going to do with my life? And I think that was sort of all linked, which I didn't realize at the time. I only read about it like years later. And I was like, oh yeah, that was when I was 30. And I just thought, well, I'm not going to be here when I'm 50. So I need to start thinking of a bit of an exit plan. And that's why I started then messaging into these Facebook groups, because I was in this yoga class and it just hit me at the end. And obviously that's when your mind is really relaxed.
Of course.
You're not like frantically trying to do anything. It was actually when I stopped trying that it kind of came to me that it was time to leave. And I I just realized that I could do my job, but on my own, and I could teach people. I didn't have to relearn anything. I didn't need to retrain as anything. I've got a degree in fashion retail buying, and I've got all of this experience. Why do I not just like spread the love and teach people?
Could do it.
I knew I could do it because also I knew the answer to everyone's questions. And so I thought that, you know, people were asking about how to negotiate prices, where to source fabrics from, how to start working, how to build it up. And I thought, oh yeah, I know all of this. But because I'd gone to uni to study fashion, and all of my friends basically worked in fashion, what I knew wasn't unique in my circle.
Interesting.
And so you don't see it as a skill necessarily until you start speaking to other people. And then I was like, oh, this is really like obvious to me. But if it's obvious to me and it's not obvious to them, maybe there's something here that could be charged for.
We're going to take a short pause to hear from one of our sponsors. Sponsors help us make the best show possible. Don't Work Harder is sponsored by Constant Contact, the digital marketing platform built with small business owners in mind. With Constant Contact, you can grow your contacts list, send out more emails, organise social media and events, and simply get more done with their advanced automation tools. It's everything you need to grow your business, advance your automation, and attract more of the right customers all in one place. Visit constantcontact.com to get started. So the first step is almost, obviously, other than listening to the voices, the other step, though, is realising that you have something that other people need.
Yeah.
So you mentioned
not taking it for granted.
And not taking it for granted and realising it's something that's special. Because I think you're right. You know, when we're amongst our peer group, we think everybody is doing the same thing and everyone knows our level of knowledge. So I think, like you said, not taking it for knowledge. You mentioned somebody there, which nicely goes on to the next thing that I wanted to just ask you about. So those of you that don't know, Elizabeth is one of my TikTok icons. It's a little bit awkward that you've not followed me back, but it's okay.
I did.
We'll check. We'll check. But you are iconic on TikTok. And there is a particular video that was kind of how I came across you. Even though we already knew each other, I didn't know you were on TikTok. I saw this video come up and it mentioned a former well-known boss in one of your recent reels. Now there's two, like there's a more serious side to it. But the jokey side is, has he tried to sue yet?
No.
Okay, this is good news. Elizabeth has not been sued, which is great. Seeing as the name's out there in the public eye, this is someone who was at Topshop. And like more seriously, what you were talking about in that clip, do you want to just share with us what the viral clip was about? What did you say, Elizabeth?
Well, one tip I would always say is if you're ever out and about and the sun is shining, just film yourself, because you will then have it ready to go when you think of a content idea to put that content to. So I was out walking my dog, beautiful sunny day.
So you got some B-roll.
Filmed it. Some B-roll.
Some B-roll,
exactly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I had this idea to say, oh, Philip Green once threatened to throw me out the window when I worked at Miss Selfridge. And that's all it said on the video. And I was actually on the bike at the gym and I just pressed post, chucked my phone on the floor and then came back to it. And it had like a few thousand views, like a couple of hours later. And then another hour, it was like a few more thousand and a few more thousand and a few more thousand. And I think the reason it kept growing is because so many people shared their similar experiences.
That's what I said to you, didn't I?
Yeah. And then the video must have been looping while people were reading and commenting. And so hilarious that I got threatened to be thrown out the window. And in context, it was saying that our sales...
I mean, it's not that funny, really, being threatened to throw out the window. Hilarious is a real, though.
Yes, yeah, exactly. People love the drama. And he said, if you don't sort your sales out, I'm going to throw you all out the window. And so we're like, are you joking or not? I don't know. But that was the kind of environment that we were working in. And some people said, you know, why didn't you report him? Who are you going to report it to? He owned the company.
Yeah.
And it was just pure bully, angry, negative energy that got filtered through. And I remember because the reason I worked there was because me and my boyfriend had been doing long distance for about 8 years whilst I was living in Leicester at Next, which was really nice. And then I was like, right, I'm going to come down. I'm going to come home. We'll be reunited and it will be amazing. And I'm going to be working on Oxford Street. It's like the fashion capital of the UK. It sounds like the dream.
That Topshop was iconic, wasn't it?
So iconic, yeah. And then I went in on my first day and it was literally like Mean Girls, where I said, you know, where do you guys eat lunch? And they said, oh, there's a Pret around the corner. And I just sat in Pret on my, nobody like offered to come with me or like show me anything. You just, I was like, I'm there on my own, like Lindsay Lohan in Mean Girls in the toilet cubicle on her own. I was like, okay. And then I met my boyfriend after work that day in Sainsbury's car park, and it was like hammering it down with rain. And he said, how was it? Like, how was your first day in London? I was like, like, yeah, it was really good. Because I didn't have the heart to tell him, like, I know that this is a mistake. I can just tell that I'm not going to be happy here. And but obviously the whole thing was about me coming home to like be with him. So I was like, I'm happy in this bit, but obviously he very quickly realized that I was not happy there at all. But yeah.
And you've talked about that a bit. You know, you talk a lot about kind of the industry and the reputation it has of having some toxicity, particularly around working cultures.
Yes.
So how did you make that transition from working for someone else? Mm-hmm. You said, you know, you reached out, you realized you had a skill set and there was a need for it.
Yeah.
But what did you actually do once you started reaching out to people in Facebook groups and people like, actually, I could do with some help?
Yeah.
What did you do next?
Well, that company I worked for, where I was the account manager, first day of that job, we got chucked a list of contacts and said, fill your diary with some appointments.
Okay.
And so we never really got told what to do. It was just go out, get the meetings booked in, and then the designer will come with you and you'll sell into the buyers like all the newness that we're designing. And so it was actually a really good interim job between corporate and working for yourself.
Right.
Where
Okay.
I was getting a salary. Yeah. But my sales were in my control. And if you didn't get the sales, you got sacked, like basically. So I thought, okay, I need to sort myself out. And I took that same mentality into working for myself, where I need to fill my own diary. I need to get my sales within my control. And if I don't get the sales, I'm essentially going to have to fire myself because I won't have any money.
Right.
So in answer to your question, what I did was I started asking these girls to come and meet me in Camden, where I worked. I would meet them on my lunch break.
So these were the people that you'd reached out to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just said, come and meet me. You know, if you want to buy me lunch, that's fine. Like, but I won't charge for it.
You weren't charging?
No. And I know there is a controversial topic, like, do you give away your knowledge for free?
Yeah.
But I also read somewhere that it's not for free, because what I asked for in return was a testimonial. I needed to build that trust with people once I did start charging, because I had the trust in the sense that I'd worked at all these huge names, but I didn't have those names once I was on my own.
Yeah, yeah.
So I needed to be able to kind of stand on my own 2 feet. And I said, you know, come and meet me in Camden, ask me anything. I'll be a completely open book. I'll introduce you to anyone that I can that will be able to help you. And I probably did like 3 months of that, just going out on my lunch breaks, either or before work or after work, I would meet somebody. And I knew that I wanted to leave. Or actually, I knew I wanted to start in September 2018.
So you had like a date you were working towards?
Yeah, because it was like new school year vibes.
Yeah.
But also people asked for a lot of help in September, because they are also on that new school.
And I imagine that's like in the fashion industry, sort of called seasons, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's the famous film, the September issue with Anna Wintour, about that's their biggest sales month for Vogue, and it's got all the
and isn't it London Fashion Week as well? Yeah.
Yes.
Look at me knowing these things.
I know.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, I'm on a 3-month notice period, so working backwards, I'll have to have my notice in around June.
Okay.
It was May.
Love this.
And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to actually have my notice in now. So I did. And
so you'd seen there was a viable market out there,
yeah,
but you didn't know that people were going to pay.
No.
Okay.
No. I'd left with no clients, no nothing. that I also started looking at other people's packages. So social media managers, life coaches, personal trainers, just to see what people charge by the hour, and started pulling a bit of a package together.
Okay.
There was a really good book actually by Carrie Green called She Means Business. And
amazing.
I listened to it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I was a proper sponge, like, again, all the way to work. I had a 3-hour commute every day, like there and back in total. So from the second I left the house to the second I arrived outside the door, I would be listening to something, Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. So like a bit of witchy and a bit of practical, but I would just soak it all up and I would write it all down. And I had an idea. I knew what I wanted to do. It was just piecing it all together.
And I think it's really interesting for me, like as I speak to more and more guests, and that's kind of the reason why we're doing this podcast, because we know that there are particular things that people do in business that almost you can start to see a pattern and a theme. And as I'm talking to you, like I'm smiling because I'm like, yeah, this is a theme I'm hearing. It's like, be a sponge, take in information.
Yeah.
You have to back yourself. So who did Elizabeth need to be to take you from that person, meeting people for free in Camden, sometimes they'd buy you a sandwich,
if I was lucky,
through to someone now who runs, if I got this correctly, you've got your mastermind, your mastermind and your one-to-one offer for like 100K plus businesses.
Yeah.
And then you've got your group accelerator, if I got that right.
Yes, well done.
Thank you. Who did Elizabeth have to be to take you from there to who you are now?
I think a big part of it was building credibility.
Okay.
So it was a credibility and confidence as well. So for the first couple of years, I relied really heavily on my career experience.
Yeah.
And I had a brilliant business coach called Sarah. And she said, you've got to stop introducing yourself saying, I probably did it today even, by saying, I used to work at all of these big brands. And so I was leaning on them. And she was like, you've got to stand on your own 2 feet and say, like, this is who I am. And that is part of my experience. But
it's interesting.
I also... It's in my, it's the way that I get my message across as well that has really resonated with people. And so having that horrible experience in fast fashion, saying that I am the friendly face in fashion.
Yeah, that's a big thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, and knowing that you can welcome people into the industry and not everyone is a bitch. And you can move forward in this industry and you can also be financially independent working in the creative industry, which I don't think a lot of people think that you can, and making really difficult messages really clear and easy to understand.
Yeah, simplifying sales almost.
Yeah, exactly. And, you are allowed to make money doing what you love. You don't have to be this poor, starving artist or a high-flying lawyer, that you can be successful in the fashion industry. It's actually the 3rd largest money-making industry in the UK.
Amazing.
And I've had lots and lots of experiences where, you say you work in fashion and people think you sit colouring in at your desk all day and they roll their eyes and they think it's something silly. But yeah, kind of taking that passion for the fashion industry seriously and encouraging people to move forward with that. So kind of owning that persona, I guess, for other people to stand with me in those beliefs.
Yeah, I think the other thing I take away from that is, so we talked about kind of understanding the market, knowing you've got something that people are going to buy, but actually the step that took you from there to who you are today, it sounds like a lot of it was also about what is your uniqueness that comes with it. You talked about being the friendly face of fashion there. You mentioned a piece of advice your business coach gave you, but if I was to ask you a question about what valuable pieces of advice have you received over the last few years that stand out for you?
Definitely another coach that I had called Sophie French, if you want to check her out. And it was 3 words and it just said, assume the best. So if somebody doesn't reply to your email, it's not because they hate you. It's because their baby might have started crying or that it went to their junk folder. And so you send it again and you send it again and you send it again and just assume the best. Assume that they are interested in what you've got to say and go again. And I speak to so many brands who give up after that first outreach and, you know, oh, she probably hates me, or she's probably not interested. And so you automatically go on the defense to kind of protect yourself. And that whole idea of, maybe people have heard that, like putting yourself out there, and it's quite an ambiguous thing to do. But just pushing forward and assuming that people are interested in what you have to offer has helped me enormous amounts. So,
and how do you, like, what do you do to protect yourself? Because, you know, they say the most triggering thing you can do in business, the most triggering thing you can do is set up a business, and let alone, you know, a business where you want to make money, because you could potentially be thinking you're putting yourself up for rejection time and time again. So how do you protect yourself, like emotionally and spiritually? We are going woo.
We're going woo.
We're going woo.
Well, two things spring to mind. One is that no bad day working for myself could ever be as bad as working at Arcadia. And I know that sounds dramatic.
I think a few of us are nodding at this. Yeah.
Yeah. But it really, I would do that all again, because I am so much more resilient. You know, they say that working in the fashion industry gives you a thick skin. That is such an understatement. Like, nothing can phase you after doing those long hours and having like no praise for it. And it's fine, because I'm happier now. And also, when I worked at ASDA one Monday morning, we came in, everyone was like, there's no trade meeting, everyone stay at your desk. You're going to get told what's going to happen. Nobody's allowed to leave the floor. And it was a huge redundancy. And so we all just had to sit and wait to see who got removed from the company. And it just made me realize that people think having a job is the safest thing that you can have, but really it's not. Like, the safest thing that you can do is being in control of your own income. And lockdown was the perfect example of that, where people were getting laid off, but I was sat in my garden thinking, what am I actually going to do? I need to think of something fast to be able to scale, because I couldn't go and meet people one-to-one in person, which is a lot of what my work was pre-lockdown. I need to figure it out. And then I made all this money, but it was up to me. I couldn't have done that if I had a job. I would have been at the helm of somebody else. So I protect myself mentally, knowing that I'm in control of my own destiny, if you like.
Yeah.
And emotionally, I only work with people who I think are a good fit now. I've definitely worked with clients in the past who I shouldn't have worked with, because they just didn't get it. They didn't trust the process. They probably didn't really trust me. And maybe some of that was also on me, that I didn't have a clear enough message at the time. But when you work with somebody who's not a good fit, it makes you feel so rubbish about what it is that you do. And then you start thinking that about everyone that you work with.
Sure.
And you really start doubting the message that you're saying, helping people. And I think, I'm not helping you because it's not going in. And then you start thinking, I'm not helping anybody ever. But when you work with people who are a good fit, it's the best thing.
So how do you identify whether a client is a good fit?
They have to talk to me. They have to be chatty. They have to be able to talk back to me.
That's such a great point.
The people who...
What does that tell you then, Elizabeth? If somebody is opening up to you, what does it tell you about what it would be like to work together?
It means that they're not going to expect me to do the work.
Okay.
So somebody, if they are really, really quiet on a discovery call, they are going to expect to be taught. Where I'm almost, you're having dinner with them and I'm leaning over the table spoon feeding them. Whereas if they're talking back to me, it's us going for dinner together as equals.
Okay.
And I'm going to help you do your work rather than me helping you do your work for you.
So an openness is one of the things you look for. What else?
Yeah. And also independence. They know that it's on them at the end of the day. I'm going to help them make their work more efficient and get results faster. I'm not going to do the work for you.
And what are the red flags?
Red flags are when somebody says to me, can you tell me what you can do for me?
Right. That very sentence.
Yeah. Because I just think you've obviously not followed me. And every time it's like, bar none, if I look at, I always ask for their Instagram handle on my contact form, my email sign up form, everything, because I can take one look at an Instagram profile and know if I'll be able to help them or not.
Okay.
And as soon as I look, they're not following me. So I'm like, you don't even know me. I don't want to work with somebody that doesn't know me on a very basic level of just like who I am and the kind of person I am and the sort of the way that I teach. So I just usually reply and say, here's some info. Here's my podcast. Go away and listen to that first. And then if you like it, come back and we can have a chat.
And I think that's, you're in a good place in your business when you can get to a point where you're saying to people, it's not an easy yes. You're actually considering what is going to be best for them. And that's kind of where our expertise comes in.
Yeah.
So thinking about the analogy of fashion then, what's been so I can definitely hear what in corporate was the difficult season.
Yes.
What's been the hardest season so far in running your own business?
Oh, I tell you what.
Have there been a few?
Yeah, where do I start? No, there's two big ones. The first 3 months were hard.
Okay.
Because I had 3 months of savings and I burned through those 3 months of savings.
Goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it was because I left in September, it was pretty much the 1st of January, let's say, that I woke up of 2019 in a cold sweat thinking I have burned through this cash that I'd saved and I've got nothing left. And now I'm going to freak out. Like, what have I done? This isn't going to work. And all the negative doubts started creeping in. But what had happened is that I'd been to so many networking events. I'd spoken to so many people. I'd DM'd so many people in those first 4 months. It all started coming back in that January where people did need help. It's a new year. They started reaching back out and it all sort of figured itself out. And then also coming out of lockdown was brutal for me because I had done so well.
Right.
And then trying to sell courses to people coming out of lockdown, nobody wanted to do anything online anymore.
Okay.
Everyone wanted to do in person and my business had just evolved that it wasn't set up that way. So I spent like 12 grand on a year-long mentoring program to try and like boost the sales. And it did work. I made my money back in the first few months and some, but it just wasn't it. I was flogging a dead horse. And then I went to Atomicon and came home.
I'm smiling. This is good.
And lay in my bed like, oh my God, I need to sort this out. I need to like burn it to the ground and start again. And then I spoke to Andrew and Pete obviously more Pete on the call initially because I booked a call after Atomicon. I was really confused after it because one person was saying have lots and lots of small offers and sell them all for $9 each and run ads to them. Somebody else was saying have a $5,000 offer and have fewer people.
Yeah.
And I just went home that night like, what the hell am I going to do? And I thought, I know, I'll ask Pete. I'll get a call booked in. And I hadn't actually paid off that 12 grand course from before.
Yeah.
And Pete said, come and join us. I'll help you build it back up again. We do need to look at your offers. And I was so scared because I was still paying that off. And I also wasn't making much money because the sales hadn't really performed. And so I took some money out of my corporation tax pot to pay for it. Yeah. Just thought, I really hope this works. And
you just had faith.
Yeah. But also faith, I'm not giving financial advice to people to say to do that. One of my good friends had already started working with them.
Okay.
And told me the results that she had.
Yeah.
We've got a very similar business. So
I think and I want to break this down a bit further.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really interesting point because sometimes we can speak to people I've been there, spoken to people who've had great results from someone. I've asked no questions.
Yeah.
And actually when I've arrived, I've then recognized it's not necessarily right for me, but you actually got more specific. So when you knew you had to, you use that expression of like burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
But you knew, dramatic. But you knew that you had to rebuild.
Yeah. And I cried pretty much every single time I launched a course.
Okay.
So whilst I'm online, I was like, hi everyone, like, putting Post-its on the wall of everybody joining. It was a full vibe. It was a party. And that was real. I was excited when people
We used to do lots of online Zoom parties, didn't we?
Yeah. But my God, was it tiring. And I burnt out every time, like emotionally just putting on this like performance. And I went and met my mum for a dog walk. And she said, Elizabeth, you cannot carry on like this. Like, you have to do something different. You know that. And it really got me. I was like, okay, like if you're saying this and you've noticed this, then I really do need to do something.
And what was the different? What was the different Elizabeth? What did she need to do? What did you do?
Well, then I rang my friend Sasha.
Okay.
And this moment, like, sounds so stupid, but I said, why am I not rich? I don't understand. Like, just tell me.
What did Sasha say?
Sasha said, let me get in the shower. I'll have a think about it and come back.
I would love that. Okay.
And I said, okay. So I sat waiting for her and she said, I've got it. Every offer that you have is selling to people with no money. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. I had like this course about how to get visible online, had another course about how to make sales. And it was, my whole message was for people who aren't successful.
Resonates so much. It's so powerful when you see that shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though people are successful, they can also still need help. And because I am such a people pleaser and this whole message of being the friendly face in fashion, I'd kind of blindsided myself in this process where I was trying to help so many different people. I'd also like thrown the fashion angle sort of to the side where I was helping people with like candle brands, and it was all blurry. Like the niche had gone, and also my ideal audience was off. And that also came after Atomicon, where I was lying in bed in my hotel room afterwards and thought, I know who my ideal customer is. Yeah, this other voice. You need to do something different. Whereas this time it was my mum and my friend Sasha.
Yeah.
I knew that I needed to switch up my messaging for people who did need help. Those people who didn't have as much money could listen to the podcast. They could join my Facebook group for free. I'm constantly on Instagram giving away like all sorts of fun stuff. And then I needed to switch my time to the people who were making more money because they also still need help. Yeah.
When I listen to you, it's like what I love about the way you explain things is there's a real clarity. I was about to say simplicity, but that sounded rude. You're simple. There's a real clarity in what you say. And sometimes when we clear away that noise, actually what you've just shared there is that you realize, stop going so broad.
Oh my goodness.
Stop trying to persuade.
Yeah.
But I also get from you that you are someone who is very tenacious. Where does that come from? Like, were you always like that?
Well, I remember my grandma said when I was little to my mum, like, oh, she's very practical. She's a very practical little girl. And I didn't actually know what the word meant when at the age. And so I just took it, but I still remember it now.
And what do you think she meant?
I'm very resourceful.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I'll find my way.
Yeah.
Like if I don't know how to do something, I'm not afraid to ask. And also I'm not afraid to ask for help, which I think some people kind of think, I'll dig my heels in and I'll figure it out on my own. And it's like, you do that, but you'll get there a hell of a lot faster if you have some help. And another good book that I read whilst I was still at work was called How to Be a Badass at Making Money. Like that.
I know that one. Yeah.
And in there she said, make sure you always allow enough money for a mentor.
Yeah.
Because you'll get there so much faster. And so I was like, okie dokie, I'll make sure that that's in my plan. And I found a woman who was the woman that I mentioned earlier, Sarah, who had pretty much done exactly what I wanted to do.
Okay.
It wasn't in fashion, it was in interiors. But I thought she can help me. And she had quite like a masculine energy, which I resonate with. It was very not woo-woo at all, really. It was she had this, she was called practical. Like no ball. Yeah. And I thought that's what I need. If I need somebody to stroke my hair, I'll go to my mum. If I need somebody to tell me if this is a good idea or not, like I've got a thick skin. I can handle the truth. Like if you've worked in fashion, I just want to know if this is going to work or not. And that woman is going to tell me. And she did. So.
And do you know what's really interesting? Like even in fashion, like when you work with a stylist, you don't want someone who just says that everything looks great. Of course,
exactly. You want the truth.
Yeah, because you want someone who's got your best interests at heart.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you speak to fashion brands who aspire to even get to the levels of success that you've seen for yourself, what are the traits that an aspiring or growing brand needs that you can see will get them to that next level?
Yes, I would say being the face of the brand.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier to do it that way. And it's just the way things are going, whether you like it or not. That is how it's going to be, how it's going to blow up. I would say
it's a personal brand there then.
A personal brand attached to the brand itself. A really, really good quality product. Obviously, you can't sell bad product. I also think there is something to be said for having a story that brand is telling to a really specific customer. And it sounds so basic when you're saying stuff like this. I actually remember used to getting frustrated listening to podcasts when people would say things like this, know your customer, have a good product, but it is that. And I look at every single one of the girls that I work with, and they're so ambitious. They're so focused. They also sit on the cusp of, I was listening to something the other day where it's like, you can be comfortable and you can be in, way out of your comfort zone, but it's that kind of edge of comfort that you really want to sit on all of the time.
Ooh, and that's interesting. Yeah.
Say when I first sold my first course, I think I made like $3,000 and it was April 2020. And my coach said, okay, do it again. And I was like, what? I've just made $3,000. I'm not even going anywhere. I can just sit in my garden. She went, sell it again, like straight off the back. And I was like, oh, okay, you don't take a breath. You keep going and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And so you're always on that edge of comfort. Like you don't need to be way out of your comfort zone, but you also don't need to be complacent. It's that sort of middle ground.
So that actually fits really nicely into the next question that I was going to ask you, which was, well, have you got to a point where you feel that sense of stability?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
And how did you know when you'd got there? What did that look like or feel like for you?
I could start predicting my income more than 4 weeks in advance.
Okay.
So selling the courses, I always used to describe it like my business was on a ship, and it was a rocky ship at that, where there wasn't any real stability. I had my one-to-one clients in the background that would pay my mortgage, but that was it. Like it was nothing really above and beyond that. And so because the courses were 4 weeks, you would make money for that 4 weeks, and then you had to do it again. But you were so exhausted that you had to have like a 2-month break to kind of renew your audience as well. So to get some new people in to sell it to again, it wasn't scalable without putting a lot of money into it to go down like the affiliate and the ads route that you see a lot of American coaches do. And I didn't want to go down that road. It didn't feel right. So I needed to be able to predict my income for longer than 4 weeks at a time.
And what was that change that you made then? So you spoke about the fact that you, we were talking about it earlier, you've got like this mastermind and you've got this accelerator. Yeah. So what exactly did you need to do then?
The accelerator came after the mastermind.
Okay, so talk me through what happened.
Started working with Andrew and Pete.
Yeah, we like this pattern. Yeah.
Yes. And they said, try doing the course one more time if you want to, which I did. And it was okay. But I'd already had it booked in before I started working with them.
Okay, so you just delivered what you had said.
Pretty much. And then they said, go down the high ticket road, because I was thinking of doing a membership. And they said, you're going to have to get something like 500 people to make. What about if you just got 10 people and charged $5,000? you'd make the same amount of money. And I thought, yes, this is just completely different to the way I'd been thinking, because with courses, it was just volume of people all of the time. Whereas that was a complete switch of thinking, wow, only 10 people. And they said something like it's actually easier to sell something high ticket than it is low ticket. And I obviously did not believe them until I did it. And then it was getting people on a sales call, messaging previous people that I'd worked with that I thought had potential to pay that fee. And I sold it in about a week, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I sold out of all the places.
And it was a year program, is it?
That was a 6-month program.
6-month program.
Yeah. Although 90% of the people stay after the first 6 months, which is nice.
Yeah, which is credit to you. So who does all the delivery in your programs then?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple of guest coaches to help me, but most of the time it's me.
So you said you've come to a place where you feel that sense of stability.
Yeah.
Yet what's interesting is you're still the one that's doing the majority of the delivery and you're smiling.
Yes.
How have you created a business that allows you some space and rest then?
It's much more scalable now.
Okay.
So, which is funny because the mastermind is actually called the Scaling Project because I'm helping people scale.
Yeah.
But it's not very scalable for me because it includes that one-to-one element, which is fine because I like doing it. I like hearing the inside of people's businesses. It helps me stay relevant to what's going on. And then that is 1 hour a week in a group, plus all the one-to-one things. So there's about 15 people in there at any one time. So that's say 15 hours a month plus the groups. That's fine. That's loads of hours left.
Okay.
And then the mastermind, the marketing accelerator is 1 hour a week.
So actually there's plenty of time in your business for you. Yeah. So what is the biggest piece of advice that the creatives that work with you need? Because they're obviously at a certain level in their business. Are there any patterns in what you're seeing?
It's a fear of scaling.
Okay.
Yeah, a fear
which is
of
why it's called
bigger.
The Scaling Project.
Yeah, essentially. So they're worried about getting cancelled. They're worried about hiring. They're worried about cash flow.
Go back. Getting cancelled.
Yeah. So there is so many. For anyone that watches Molly May's documentary on Amazon, I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't.
No.
She started her own fashion brand.
Yeah,
and
that I know. Yeah.
Created a lovely collection. She put out this blazer and the blazer started pilling where like you may see it when it gets bubbly under the arm. And it was so unexpected.
But it was all over TikTok.
All over TikTok.
Yeah, as you can see, I spend a lot of time on TikTok.
She's a con artist.
Oh.
She's, she knew that this was going to be, I can't believe she's charging this much money. And so
this is really real for fashion brands.
Yeah, just the fact that you might sell something that isn't good enough quality. There is another influencer called Sarah Ashcroft who had it recently as well, where it blew up so big. She started delivering product that wasn't the quality that she had agreed. And it put her into such a cash flow situation that she wasn't able to recover from it. And she shut the business. So a product-based business, it has much, much, much tighter margins than a service-based business. So it's even more important that they are all over their numbers. So on my podcast, everyone that I'm interviewing, the common themes between all of them is that they're all over their numbers because they have to be, because the margins are
really
so tight.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you talk there about cancelling.
Yeah.
So for these brands, is marketing and managing your brand reputation also a part of the big piece of work within your industries?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Becoming known for something, and you want to go viral, but for all of the right reasons. And you want to be able to put yourself as the face of the brand, as long as it doesn't go wrong, because then you're then attached to that as well. So I think one of the brands that I worked with was called Lucy and Yak. And obviously it's Lucy who is the founder, but then her name is literally in that brand name.
Yeah.
And so everything that brand stands for, she found it quite difficult to embody that as it grew.
Okay.
And then just knowing that the brand almost outgrew her to an extent, because it wasn't possible to still be the face of that brand
Sure.
when it's making as much money as it is. It blew out. So that was quite interesting.
So even at scaling, there's a whole load of other challenges that they face. And you're talking about counselling there. I heard a great example of I think it was North Face. There was this.
That was.
Do you know the
awful.
example?
Yeah.
Will you share it with us? Because I think that's a really good example of how they potentially could have been cancelled. If you're talking about the woman who was up the mountain with the jacket.
Oh, I might be thinking of something else.
Share your example with us.
Oh, I don't know if I would get it right.
Okay. Tell me.
They hosted some sort of educational competition about racism. And said, if you complete the course, you'll get a discount for the brand.
Oh, God.
And they sort of linked educating yourself to increasing their turnover, essentially. Okay. So like the prize was to spend more money at North Face. It did not land very well.
But I think, this is an interesting point. Although my example was a different one, I think this is an interesting point because, again, it's about having more knowledge and insight around your audience, just like you've had to do with the people that you're helping. The other thing that you're sharing here is you have to have an awareness of the problems that they're going to be facing or the challenges they could face with their customers.
Yeah. So, I mean, even as a supplier selling into retailers, the first thing every single retailer would say when you sit down in that meeting is, what's everyone else doing? So being that external person going into a business, you were able to give insight into what other people are doing. And so that's the good thing about the mastermind is essentially they can see what everyone else is doing behind the scenes and being able to ask other brands, have you ever tried something like this? I'm thinking of doing this sort of competition. It has this message attached to it. Do you think that's a good idea? And kind of getting that feedback before you put it out to the public and it essentially kind of going one of two ways.
And when I think of the fact, like, you've got your own podcast and I've watched a few episodes and they're brilliant. As you know, I love them. So you've got such a level of expertise, but there must be those days where your imposter kind of comes to play. When that happens, like feeling like, can I be here? Can I be speaking to these people? What do you tell yourself?
Well, there is definitely more times of the month where you go through those phases of like doubting yourself. And so being aware of that, it's like actually starting to track things, and tracking my cycle has helped loads so that I know if it's just get over it. Yeah. And honestly, that is what I tell myself most of the time. My mum and dad are both quite get on with it. Yeah. Like very sweet and very like loving and everything. Yeah. Just get on with it. Just try and see what happens. And I have been a bit nervous to do things in the past. I hosted a lunch for women who were all turning over 7 figures. I didn't know one single person that came to that lunch. I was nervous beforehand, but I thought they've said yes, so they want to be there, and therefore I'm going to be there. I don't know. I just think get over it and get on with it.
A great piece of advice. How did you make that lunch happen then? So you didn't know a single person?
No.
So what did you do to make that happen?
I kind of can't take too much credit for it because it is a Daniel Priestley key person of influence tactic. So another book that I read. He said, if you've got 50 quid, take somebody out for dinner. And because I had started seeing that stability in my business and I did want to kind of keep growing to that next level, I wanted to meet people who were at that stage. And I thought, well, if I just say, do you want to hang out? They're not going to say yes. Whereas if I say, do you want me to take you out for lunch? Then they might say yes. So there was a bit of leverage there, I guess, for me to ask them to come along and take time out of their day. And I also hosted it with one of my friends who's a content creator who also has her own fashion brand. So I thought, if I ask some people, she asks some people, we say we're doing it as a collaboration. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some people were more likely to say yes to her. Some people are more likely to say yes to me. We split out the invite list, DM'd everybody. And then as soon as one person said yes, we
get so much easier.
Said, you'll be able to meet me and her and this person and also this person and also this person. And so, we just kept following up with people until we had like a nice number to go out for lunch. And then quite a few of those people have now been guests on my podcast and so on. So
brilliant example.
Yeah, just again, putting yourself out there, seeing what happens, doing something that feels a bit scary, but just doing it anyway, and pushing yourself more than, like, don't allow yourself to get too comfortable. I would say an example of that was a documentary that I watched about Marks and Spencer's one year, and it really stuck in my head about how they had a huge market share in like the 80s and 90s. They got so complacent, everyone swallowed them up. You know, all of the supermarkets started coming in on their business, underwear especially, wiped them out. And now they've really, you know, people are now saying, oh, isn't Marks and Spencer's cool now? Like, you know, I've started to buy more stuff. And it's because they've worked literally for about a decade to claw it back.
Wow.
So don't allow yourself to get into the same position as them, where it's been a real struggle uphill to even get back to where you were. You've kind of got to, that's where it...
Which is where the comfort bit comes in.
Yeah.
So, Elizabeth, thank you. Like so much insight, so many kind of interesting and practical pieces of information there.
I hope so.
If I was going to ask you for like one word to tell me, what season are you in right now of business and life? What would you say?
I would say summer.
Okay.
Even though we're recording it in the summer.
We are.
Yes. Yeah. I have definitely been through the winter, the shedding of all my previous offers.
Yeah.
I've developed lots of new ones, and now I'm enjoying delivering those offers that have been born out of spring.
Well, I mean, it's my favourite season, so I'm loving that.
Yes.
Let's do a quick fire round before we close.
Yes.
So what are you currently reading, watching, and or listening to?
I am watching Yellowstone on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a little bit behind. I didn't realise how old that show was, but it seems to have blown up recently, so I'm watching that. I have just finished reading the Daniel Priestley Key Person of Influence, which I really enjoyed. It's really short.
Yeah.
And again, it's all about building your credibility, about publishing as an author and presenting and having a good pitch and kind of being the personality of your brand. And listening to...
Yeah, what's on your playlist?
I would probably give it a podcast recommendation because I listen to it every time I take the dog out, which is The Rest is Entertainment by
don't know it.
Marina Hyde, and I can't remember his name now. It's complete Richard Osman.
Okay. I like Richard Osman. I do know who he is.
Yeah. And it's all the fringe chat around television and celebrity, like gossip and what's happening at the moment, because I love TV, I love celebrity, I love showbiz, I'm obsessed with all of it, but I also like having quite an intelligent conversation around what all of those things mean, about like what's happening in the world and how it affects people, and that is the conversations that they have. So kind of taking something that feels quite frivolous but making it interesting.
Amazing. Elizabeth, thank you so much for all that you've shared. I've really enjoyed catching up with you.
You too.
And look forward to seeing you on TikTok soon. Thanks so much for listening to Don't Work Harder. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. This show has been brought to you by Atomic, the home of epic business growth. Head to our website at atomic.site to hear more about our business programs and epic events.